Okay, here's a question from the June 2010 paper. The question is about Pastor Martin Niemoller, and it asks how Niemoller and the Protestant churches opposed the Nazi government. So let's take a look in detail at this particular answer. First of all, looking at the question, the focus is on how, the methods that Niemoller used. Just so we're absolutely clear on this, a pastor is a Protestant priest. Looking at the plan that we have here, it's the usual point, but a very, very important one. You've got an introduction, you've got a conclusion, they bookend the answer. This was actually a 9-mark question, which is about 13 minutes, so it needs to be paragraphed. So as you can see, putting aside the introduction and the conclusion, there are 4 main paragraphs in this answer, so you'd probably spend about 2 to 3 minutes on each of these paragraphs. The most important thing is that you write the topic sentences. Okay, if all you did was write those points there, that would pretty much guarantee you a reasonable mark for the answer. You don't need to write down every single word that you're looking at here. Some people can write faster than others. Ideally though, when you pick up a point, so for example in paragraph 2 here, you've got additional detail to the right. Include as much of that supporting detail as you can within the time that you have available, which, as I say, will be 2 to 3 minutes per paragraph. Okay, let's get into the detail of what this is about. First of all, the introduction. As always, the introduction puts it into context, show an understanding of what the issues, what the question is about, why they've actually asked you to answer this question. So the key point is that when Hitler took power in 1933, he acted very swiftly to bring organised religion under Nazi control. As of course you know, everything about Nazi ideology is the opposite to Christian beliefs. Christian beliefs preach humility and helping the weak. The Nazis preached ruthlessness and the weak going under. So what the Nazis did in terms of the Protestant churches, this is what the question is about. It's not about the Catholic Church, so don't get confused on that. They formed a group called the German Christians, who very quickly in 1933 took control of the Protestant churches. Now, the way that happened is a Nazi bishop, a Reich bishop called Ludwig Müller, was appointed to take over the Protestant churches. And Pastor Martin Niemoller was a very brave and important Protestant preacher who led a resistance movement called the Confessing Church. Now you can pretty much get that across in 2 sentences. That sets your answer up. What you then do is get into the main body of the answer, as I say, which is 4 paragraphs, 2 to 3 minutes on each paragraph, and this very much focuses in on the how did Martin Niemoller oppose the Nazi regime. So the first point you want to make is the why. Get that out of your system very early on. What were the main reasons? What motivated him? Okay, well, Niemoller disagreed with the Aryan paragraph. The Aryan paragraph was put in by Reich Bishop Müller into the Protestant church, basically saying that the Führer was head of the church, and that the Nazi doctrines, the Nazi ideologies, the racial superiority of Aryans should be put into church writings. Niemoller disagreed with that. He said the Christ is in charge of the church, not the Führer, and he disagreed with the way in which the Christians of Jewish descent were persecuted by the Nazis. So he was not prepared to see the Aryan paragraph included in Protestant church writings. So you then move on to paragraph 3, and what paragraph 3 very much does is focuses in on the organisational the organisational methods that Martin Niemoller used. How exactly did he oppose? Well, he was a very well organised man. He gathered a group of about 2,000 pastors, Protestant priests like himself, who disagreed with what the Nazis were doing. They formed an emergency league that defended the church writings. These pastors gathered together in a meeting called a synod. It was called the Synod of Baren. Fairly early on, it was in May 1934, just less than a year and a half after Hitler became leader. And from that meeting, they formed a rival non-Nazi Protestant church, that basically broke away from Reich Bishop Müller, and it was called the Confessing Church. By the end of 1934, they had passed an emergency church law called the Barmen Declaration, and it called upon all Protestant pastors to break away and join the Confessing Church. So that's probably your most substantial paragraph. Now, you then move into the next paragraph, paragraph 4, and what you're doing here in paragraph 4 is focus more on Niemoller. He led by personal example. He was prepared to put his own life at risk. He believed it was important to speak out. And because of that, he was arrested by the Gestapo in 1937. He was sent to 2 different concentration camps. If you can learn the names, that's great. Remember, precise details really helps. Sachsenhausen and Dachau. And he's most famous for writing a poem condemning the silent bystander that begins with the line, "First they came for the communists and I did not speak out." He's also significant because he worked with Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who's the other most famous church leader who resisted the Nazis. Bonhoeffer became much more active in the active resistance. He went to Britain and America, and he actually plotted to remove Hitler. And he actually, unlike Niemoller, Bonhoeffer did die in a concentration camp in 1945, whereas Niemoller survived. Final paragraph, point out the fact that the Confessing Church ultimately did not succeed on one level. It went too far. In 1936, it wrote a memorandum to Hitler denouncing his anti-Jewish policies, and that was too much for Hitler. And in 1937, the Gestapo launched a wave of arrests, and so several hundred Protestant pastors were arrested. The money of the Confessing Church was confiscated, and after that, the pastors basically were pushed underground. Not literally, underground means that they had to work secretly, and they couldn't be out in the open, and spent a lot of their energies helping Jews who were being persecuted. So it did continue to exist. It was still there in 1945, but it was an underground organisation, but it found it very, very difficult to function, especially during the war because of Gestapo arrests. So you've got plenty there for 13 minutes to write an answer. Remember, the key thing is those topic sentences. Don't worry too much about adding all the information that's in the right-hand column. If you can just tag 1 or 2 points into each paragraph, that will be sufficient, but there's plenty there for those of you who can write fast. The conclusion, pull together the main points. As I say, Niemoller did survive the Nazis. He was rescued by the Allies. He was in a concentration camp when the war ended, but the Allies liberated him, and he actually lived until 1984. 2 main methods. He organised the rival Protestant church called the Confessing Church, and he led by personal example, condemning silent bystanders and risking arrest. Now you can download this document from Frog. When you download it, you'll see that there are actually 2 other pages. I'll quickly show you those. So on page 2, they're both from Britannica Learn. Remember, all students from our school have got membership of Britannica Learn. The log-on details are on the homepage of Frog, so please use that. I've taken this extract from Britannica Learn about Martin Niemoller, so Again, I've highlighted keywords, and in that particular extract, at the bottom there, you'll see there is that famous poem that he wrote. And then on the next page, also from Britannica Learn, there is their section about the confessing church. So plenty there for you to use. I hope that was useful for you.